Hey everybody, this is Matthew Soltesiak, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast, part of the Minute Media Podcast Network. This season, it's all grit. I speak with a variety of guests and interview key players, gaining more insight on what makes this team go. The Detroit Lions are now in a new, grittier era, and we look beyond just the kneecaps when it comes to the analysis. Welcome to another episode. In this episode, I speak with former Detroit Lions quarterback Mike McMahon. Now, we previously spoke with him about his NFL Combine experiences, and today we hear a little bit more about his experience getting drafted by the Detroit Lions and some insights on playing for the team as well. Let's get to it, Lions fans.
This is Corey Schlesinger, and you are listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast.
Again, if you want to hear more about Mike's insights on the NFL Combine, go back, check out part 1 of our interview. Here in part 2, we're going to hear what it's like from a player's perspective again, going through the NFL draft experience. Mike also shares some of his many memories with the Detroit Lions, some very good experiences and some he wishes would have gone a different way. Here's the interview. Joining me today is former Detroit Lions quarterback Mike McMahon. Mike, thanks for taking the time to join me again here on the show.
My pleasure.
All right, just to remind the listeners here, you were drafted in 2001 at pick 149 in round 5. The Detroit Lions actually took wide receiver Scotty Anderson at pick 148, and then they traded their 6th and 7th round picks with the Patriots to move up and take you with the very next pick. You were with the Detroit Lions from 2001 to 2004, and the last time we got together and talked, we talked about your Combine experience on the show. And now we're moving past the Combine towards the NFL draft. Once the Combine ended in 2001, what took place for you between that and the NFL draft? Did you have your pro day or anything?
Yeah, we did a pro day. We did went back, continued working out, got ready for the pro day, had some teams come in, did the whole workout, and then actually the Lions came back and did another separate private workout probably a couple of weeks right before the draft. Yeah, they probably like 2 weeks before 2 or 3 weeks before, maybe 3 weeks before the draft. But yeah, at the time it was Marty Morningwig, Matt Millen, the GM, and Kevin Higgins, who they had as the quarterback coach at the time. So they came back in and ran their own workout.
Wow. And is that how was that different than when tell the viewers the nuances between your pro day and people coming and were there multiple teams there? And then when you had the private workout, was there more pressure or did it kind of feel the same?
No, it actually, so when I did the pro day, they have you do some drills that, for me, it was the first time I've ever seen the drills. So no one really had explained it to me. When I went through it, it was maybe a little awkward the first time. And I think, Marty was a great offensive minded coach, obviously was with the Packers, coached with Favre and Young, and he actually played, Marty Morningwig actually played high school football under Mike Holmgren. So Marty was a quarterback himself as well. And when they put me through it, Marty's like, don't do the drill this way, do it this way. And he kind of showed me. And then it was like, oh, okay, so it wasn't, I almost felt a little ill prepared. But nowadays, everyone's got their trainers, their quarterback trainers. They know exactly what to look for. And people know exactly what's going to happen. And at the time, I don't think my agent was maybe as well prepared on knowing what workout I will be doing, because I didn't work with anyone. I would just go out and I would, do my own quarterback workout and throw and footwork and, from what was taught for me. And then going through the drills and actually doing them like a second or third time, you start to understand it, like, oh, I can do it this way. Oh, because I'm trying to do a drill that I think they want me to do it a certain way, but I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't. So, I probably didn't look as good for my pro day, but when the Lions came back, obviously, they explained it a little bit better, and Marty helped me kind of get through that. So
Awesome. What was that? Was that great? I mean, did that encourage you that a team's like, hey, we
yeah, I
want to come back
mean,
and have a private workout with you?
yeah, I mean, because a lot of it for me was when I came out, I remember my head coach Terry Shea got the quarterback job with Kansas City Chiefs. There was a connection there. He was with Al Saunders and Dick Vermeil, and they were going to the whole speculation was they were going to pick up Trent Green in free agency and then draft me in the third round and develop behind. And then there was the talk of the Dallas Cowboys, where they were extremely interested, and the Dallas Cowboys were going to supposedly draft me in the second round. And so there's all this talk, there's all this expectations that you hear these rumors, and your agent will tell you certain things, and you're like, oh, okay, this is great. And it's tough because you're still a kid, you're still a young person, and you're excited for this opportunity, and you hear all these things, and you just don't know what's going to happen, and you're like, oh, am I going to move to this city, am I going to move to that city? And so all these emotions are kind of going like, oh, that'd be kind of cool, Dallas seems like a nice place. And then the draft comes, and I think it was like the week before the draft, it was like there's no way the Chiefs are going to get Trent Green. It's just it kind of fell through, and so I was like, all right, well, I guess, all right. So they weren't going to get Trent Green. They went out and they picked up Bubby Brister in free agency, and
Okay.
so they end up paying him a signing bonus and giving him some money, and so it's like, all right, well, you're going to be in the third round. Your Bubby's going to be, we're still going to develop you. And then, like the night before the draft, they get Trent Green. And so now they've got Trent and Bubby. And like, well, now we don't need a quarterback. So it kind of totally like, whoa, 180. And I actually had a good relationship, with the quarterback coach, Terry Shea, because he was my head coach in college. And he's like, yeah. He's like, it came through at the final hour, and they got the deal done. But yeah, we don't need a quarterback now, so that fell through. So
So
now
you're
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 like,
hearing from multiple teams,
oh
and
yeah,
the storyline is constantly ebbing and flowing and changing. It's not static.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. And then your agent will sit there and try to tell you something, and it's like, you don't know either. You just don't know. And so then there was the rumor that Dallas was coming in, and they ended up picking. My phone wasn't ringing, so I was like, all right. And then they picked Quincy Carter, and I remember, Jerry Jones had came out and even said, yeah, I just felt a connection. Quincy and I had the same birthday, so that kind of went. That's where I decided to go, and I was like, that's where we're going with. You guys had to share a birthday, so the draft can go a bunch of different ways, and you hear certain things, but you just don't know. And I remember, it was a disappointing day because it was everything that agents told you, everything that teams told me, like went the opposite way. Oh, you will not pass the first day. And the first day back then was 3 rounds.
yeah.
So like, yeah, you won't get past the first day. And I was like, oh, okay. And then all of a sudden the first day comes and goes, and you're like, oh my goodness. And then stuff starts falling off the board, and you're just like, oh, boy, am I even gonna get drafted at this point? And it becomes a very stressful thing. A day that could be extremely exciting day became a very stressful day. And so I remember at that point, I was like, well, at this point, I kind of only hope it's either the Lions or the Jaguars, because both of those teams told me they weren't going to take a quarterback till late rounds. The Jaguars said a fifth round is the earliest they're going to take, and I think the Lions even said they were going to take someone in the sixth round. But I probably won't be around. And and then all of a sudden it just happened. Like it was the fifth round. I was like, all right, it was like it's kind of a little bit bittersweet. They call you, you're excited that you got picked by a team, but at the same time, you're like, what just happened in the last 24 hours, you know? So it's tough, but you know, it's part of being a professional. Life throws curveballs at you. It's not always fair, and you got to deal with it.
Yeah, so let's back up then to that first night. You know, what were you doing that first night? Did you go out somewhere? Were you home with family? What were you doing that first night?
Uh, I the first night before the draft, I had a buddy of mine. He was playing. He was my center of mine at Rutgers, Sean O'Hara. He was playing for the Browns at the time. He was actually went on to play for the Giants and win two Super Bowls with them. But he was in Cleveland, so he drove in town. And I was like, "Yeah, let's go out night before the draft." You know, so we went out. We didn't do anything crazy. We just went out. Pittsburgh's nothing fancy. We went to a local bar and came home early because I was like, "All right, big day tomorrow. Let's get back in." And it kind of just went the wrong way. So uh, the next night, I don't think I did anything. I think I just went to bed early. I was like, "Yep, I'm good. I'm just gonna lay it down." So it wasn't anything exciting. I know, um, you know, my parents. I did not. They wanted the local news wanted to be here and have news cameras, and I just didn't want it. I just wanted to be with my family. And and then when I finally did get drafted, they showed up, which I was kind of like, this is weird. And I found out that my parents said that they can come after the draft thing settles down to interview. So they were right around the corner, you know, for 24 hours. I was like, oh, this is so embarrassing. So it's drafts can be tough. It can be a great day for a lot of people, and it can be a tough day for a lot of other people.
Yeah, I mean, from a fan standpoint, the fans are all looking at it excited because they're not directly involved, right? And they're not the ones that are waiting to see, oh, am I going to be a top five pick? I mean, every year you see the people in the green room who go there, and some of them, now that it's just the first round, they don't get drafted in the first round. They either come back the second day or they opt out the second day. And so a big range of emotions there.
Yeah, I mean, and you can sit there and say the fans, yeah, are they? They're invested. It's just a different investment. You know, obviously, you look at the Detroit fan base. They've been craving a winner for a long time. They
Yeah.
deserve it. I think as a young player, you're more as a young player who you got to mature some. You're more thinking about your own feelings, and rightfully so. I mean, this is your life. This is your goal. This is what you guys have worked so hard for. But at the same time, like you're going to a fresh, obviously I grew up a Steelers fan, so yeah, I'm going to a fresh new city. I don't know much about the Detroit Lions, and there's a lot of people there that have been just diehard Lions fan that has been begging for a winner for a very long time, and surprisingly or not, you don't realize this as a player until you get older, but you have a lot of effect on people's emotions, and
Yes, you do.
whether you want to believe it or not, you can win a game on a Sunday and you can make that person's week, and you can lose a game on a Sunday and you can make their life miserable for them. And it's uh, some people will come up to you, uh, and it's nice to hear when people say, "Oh, I'm so happy you guys did this and that," and then and you don't obviously people don't come up to you and be like, "Oh, you lost. I'm miserable." No one says that. The people that come up and tell you about the losses are the ones that were gambling on games back then. It's like, well, you shouldn't be gambling. Like, what do you want me to tell you? So, but I will say, like, when you, especially in like a Detroit, like a Pittsburgh, those cold weather areas where sports is the number one things that run those towns. And if you lose, like you can cause someone to have a really, really rough week. And so are the fans invested? Yes, they are, so I get it. But at the same time, the players are human as well. I get it. The money's uh, a lot better nowadays, and these guys are making a lot of money, but still, like there's a lot involved, and you have to, just as a human, uh, uh, you have to almost take yourself out of your own shoes and always try to put yourself in the other person's shoes. Whether you're a fan, put yourself in the player's shoes, or whether you're who's worked everything for all their life, their goals, they've been trying this, they wanted this for so much, and they finally have the opportunity. Or as a player, like fans that have wanted to be a part of a winner for so long. The team, look, the Lions are just craving that Super Bowl. So you have to look at it from both sides. It's the only thing you can do as a human being to really fully understand it and have respect for each other.
That's a great explanation, a great perspective there.
It's
Um,
tough. It's tough. You can be very selfish and look at it one way, but then you got to look at the other way as well. So there's a lot that goes into it.
all right, so you were expecting, you were hoping, you were hearing from many people that you'd be taken by the third round. It doesn't happen, like you said. There was that disappointment, but in the end, you became the first quarterback from Rutgers drafted in the NFL, and you
Okay.
were drafted in the fifth round by the Detroit Lions. Even though it didn't happen when you wanted it to happen, you did get drafted, which is something that a lot
Yeah.
of people never get the experience for. Was there a little bit of excitement and jubilation when the moment did happen?
Yeah. I mean, it was. I think for me, it was more of a sigh of relief,
Okay.
um, because it was like, well, the doubt kicks in, and it's like, will I get drafted? Is this going to happen? And it can get a little scary. And so I think that's what it's more is that relief feeling, and then it kind of kicks into the young little confident cockiness, like, oh, I'm gonna prove everyone wrong. And well, listen, there's a lot of good players there, and you got a lot to learn. And I'll be the first to admit, like, I did some really good things, and made some great decisions, and then I let my ego get involved in some other things, and made mistakes along the way. It's just part of life. And so you live and learn. But it's funny. I have a coach that I talk to every once in a while. He was at Rutgers, and we helped coach this past year together, and he said this saying, and it's so true: youth is wasted on the young. And it's just, you've got all this energy, you've got all this healthy body, you've got all this talent, and your mind is just young. And you gotta mature and understand that the world is, there's a lot going on in it, and it's not just going to revolve around you. So
All right. Well, once you got drafted, what happens next? I mean, how quickly did you go to Detroit? Is there anything you had to do right away?
I think it was, it was like, oh yeah, I think it's like I believe at that time it was a week later you get out there for the rookie mini camp. And they're like, yeah, well, we're gonna get your flights and stuff. And all of a sudden, they fly you out there, they pick you up. Uh, Typically, you're with, like, they time the flights where you got like four or five guys coming in. Now maybe it's different now that they're in Dearborn. Because when I was drafted, we were in Pontiac still. That was the last year at the Pontiac Silverdome, and so um, they flew us in. They picked us up in a van. They drove us up. They put you up in uh, the Marriott, right, like West Bloomfield, all the way up just past Troy a little bit.
Yeah.
There's yeah. So and then they pick you up and they drive you up to the Pontiac Silverdome, um, for practice. And you go in, you go to the meetings, you get your playbook. It's like this thick, and you're like, what is this? Like, there's no way I'm going to learn this in the next 3 days. It's impossible. Um, but they throw a lot at you. You kind of go in, you get a little workout in. They try to they throw a lot at you, but at the same time, then they kind of back it down, and you get your feet wet a little bit. And I think with me, uh, I our we had the vets there. We had the vets there, and they were ready, pretty much ready to go, because I'm not sure if the rules have changed, but when you get a new coach, you get that extra mini camp before the draft. So
Okay.
So I know they had a mini camp before the draft. And so when we were there and they're on the field, you're trying to, and everything is moving fast, the horn's going off, you got to run from drill to drill. It's so chaotic. You're like, what is going on? And I'm like, how do these guys know this? They just introduced this. And then I found out they already had a mini camp. I was like, okay. I was like, I thought they had a new coach. Like, how are they knowing this? So, but it's a little bit overwhelming. But you kind of learn. And for me, I came in with Dominic Raiola, Jeff Backus, Scotty Anderson, I think Aaron Glenn was a linebacker, and then also what's his face, Sean Rogers, Big Baby, and we had I think 5 guys that were drafted. We had a good group of guys, 5 or 6 guys that were in that draft class. Then they bring in some free agents. You get a chance to meet them as well. You kind of hang out with them, and then you meet the vets. And then fortunately for me, like some of the vets, kind of took me underneath their wing and kind of bring you along a little bit, and so kind of show you how things need to be done.
Cool. Who were some of those veterans that helped you? Some of the players that had that impact on you?
Well, so I had the same agent as Stephen Boyd, so he immediately kind of introduced me to certain guys. And, he was tight with Dave Sloan, Corey Schlesinger, who just, I think he was there a year or two before me. It might have just been a year before me, but he was so well liked. It was like he was a part of, the room. I do remember Scott Kolakowski, he was a great guy. He was right at the end of his career, and it was kind of funny. When you get into a locker room, there's a lot of joking around, a lot of poking fun, and uh, his nickname was Solo Flex because he looked like the Solo Flex model. Like, I don't know if you remember that guy. He was just ripped, and when I came in, I was working out a lot. My body felt great. I was in great shape at the time, and Boyd immediately, because Kolakowski Scott was with the linebackers, and he was an older linebacker, so they were always ripping on each other. So Boyd called him Solo Flex, and when I came in, he immediately started calling me Bo Flex because that was like the newer version of the Solo Flex. So for a while, my nickname was Bo Flex when I first got to Detroit. But it's all in good fun. You build some good relationships. You start to learn the area. I mean, even as a rookie, you come in, you learn the offense, and then they throw like a packet at you, like, hey, this is the surrounding areas. This is where you're going to be living. These are the schools, and you're like living schools. Like I'm just trying to make the team right now. Like it's a lot, and it's definitely a eye-opening experience. It's like, oh well, we're here now, and next year we're moving to our new facility down in Dearborn, down in Allen Park. So we're gonna here, So what are you gonna? And it's just a lot of information thrown at you. Um, excuse me, but it's a good experience. It's a you're wanted feeling, but uh, but there's still nerves, like because there's no guarantee. You didn't make the team. You just and I was scared to death. I was like, man, I don't know if I'm going to make this team, because it was tough. It was a lot of information, and they're throwing at you, and they're especially as rookies. Sometimes it's almost like they try to, not the players, the coaches almost try to break you a little bit. The one thing I learned was, helping other rookies out, and when they came in, and one thing I've learned, was if you were a number one or a number two draft pick, even a third round, like your first 3 rounds, especially 1 and 2, you are getting like you're going to get the red carpet rolled out for you. You're going to get every opportunity to screw up and then screw up again and then screw up again, and they're like, yeah, it's okay, you're good, and they coach you real. But if you are a 4, 5, 6 or free agent and you mess up, they are all over you. And it's like, and I remember David Kirkus when he came in from Grand Valley State, and he was
Yeah.
like, this is, you know, and he came in the same year as Charles Rogers, and he's like, Charles can do no wrong. Like, they this, that, they're talking about him. And he's like, and I do one little slip up. And like, I'm like, hey, trust me, I've been there. I know it. Just keep on battling through. And if you think about it, it's kind of backwards. Like this is the guy that you're paying all the money. This is the guy that should know it, based off the money he's making. And then
Hmm.
like the free agent guy who's not really getting paid much and is kind of the long shot, he should be the guy that's kind of like, all right, you're good. Don't worry, you're coming along, but it's the every team I was with, it was the same way. They're harder on the late round guys than they are on that number one and number two guy.
That's interesting insight there. And yeah, you had quite the acclamation. Obviously,
Yeah.
you were not sure you were going to make the team. Obviously, we know you did. And you played multiple years with the Lions. Let's talk briefly about that first year. You actually started, if I'm not mistaken, 3 games your rookie season. Is that you were backing up Charlie Batch? Is that correct?
Yeah, so I started off backing up Charlie. I remember Marty. Well, when I came into camp, it was myself, it was Charlie, Jim Harbaugh, Corey Sauter, and myself. And when we left, they ended up. I was battling it out with Corey, and I think mentally he was further along in the game than I was. But physical attributes, arm strength, mobility. I think I had that edge. And, obviously, thank goodness they kind of looked by that and saw the potential that could be there. Um, and I remember going through training camp and I was like, man, I just don't know. I just don't know. And, I was like, man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. And then it was the first preseason game at the Silverdome against the Tennessee Titans. And the rush, like practice was always harder to me. And then when I got in the game and, the live bolts are coming at you and the rush is coming at you, the window opens up and you throw it. I'm like, this is so much easier in practice. And then you're taking off and running. And I just remembered why I loved the game so much was that first preseason game. But so that ended up going well. And it looked like it was going to be Charlie, Harbaugh, and myself. And Jim was a really well liked guy, and he was great to me. That was another guy that kind of took me underneath his wing. We got a night off in training camp up in Saginaw. He took me out to dinner. Was a really nice guy. Um, and I got my first taste of the business was when I came in the one day and like Jim's gone, and I'm like, what do you mean Jim's gone? Where's Jim gone? And they're like, oh, they released him. They just traded for Ty Detmer. And I was like, oh my goodness. And it was because I thought like Jim was solidified. Like he had a great preseason. We played our last preseason game in Indianapolis. He was running around, captain comeback. He got standing ovation. And he was awesome. And it was like, boom, he was gone. And I don't even think I got a chance to say goodbye. Like he was already gone. And
Wow.
so it was a little bit of a wake up call, but fortunately for me, Ty had came in from Cleveland, who had a relationship with Marty. Ty was in Green Bay with Marty. Ty was in San Francisco with Marty, and Ty was just in Cleveland. And so when Ty came in, Marty kind of spoke with Ty and said, "Hey, Ty, teach Mike the offense, bring him in a little bit." But also my center, Sean O'Hara, was in Cleveland with Ty. So Sean had a relationship with Ty. So before Ty came, Sean was like, tell him a little bit about me. And then I remember Detmer came in and, introduced himself. He was a pretty nice guy. And I think it was like, right after the first or second practice and you're tired, you're long days and you're in the film room and it was all Charlie and I'm trying, I'm paying attention, but at the same time, like it's the end of the day, it's like 6 o'clock at night and the head starts bobbing. You're trying to hold your eyes up, and the coach is afraid. And all of a sudden, I feel this fist like right against my face, this little jaw, a fist against my jaw, and it was Detmer. And he just kind of like gave me like a little jab to wake me up. And he's sitting there laughing at me, but he was a great guy, and he kind of took me along too. So, yeah, Charlie started the first game against Green Bay. Ty, we ended up losing that game. They ended up deciding to make a change. Well, we were supposed to play a game. 9/11 happened. 9/11 happened. So the game was canceled. Then we were supposed to play. They ended up deciding to start Ty, and we were playing the Browns at Cleveland, and this was Ty's former team, and it was the game. It was the week after things after 9/11, because I remember the Browns coming out, they were holding up the American flags, and then Ty had a rough one. Ty, going up against his former team, threw 7 interceptions, and
I remember that game.
it's funny because I'll never forget that. And any kid I coach now that maybe played for another team before, or maybe had transferred or something like that, I'm like, hey, do you want to play against them? Like, listen, it can go really good or it can go really bad. I've seen it both sides, so I'm aware of that because I've seen it. And Ty was heartbroken. He apologized to the team after their. I think he was embarrassed. He apologized to the team after the game. He was crying in the locker room, and everyone kind of just rallied around him, and picked him up. And then Charlie ended up getting put back in the starting role. And then Marty brought me in his office and was like, I'm going to start getting your feet wet. We're going to spot play you. Probably a series in the first half, a series in the second half, here and there, and just to get you a little taste of the NFL football. And so I was very appreciative of it. I not too many times do you see that done. And I think my first game I played in was, I'm not sure if it was like 4, 5, or 6, week 4, 5, or 6, but it was against the 49ers in San Francisco. And my first drive, we ended up going down the field and kicking a field goal. So I was happy. I was like, all right, I got a field goal. So,
Yeah.
I mean, but it was huge. I got a little spot playing here and there. And I think the other one was coming in the Green Bay, or the Green Bay game at the Pontiac. I played the first series. I played a series in the first half. I think we had like 5 or 6 plays, and then we had a punt. And then it was like, oh, will I play in the second half? I don't know. And it just didn't seem like we were down, so it didn't seem like I was going to get that opportunity. And that's when we were down 16, and Ty was talking about Thanksgiving dinner. I started thinking about Thanksgiving dinner. There was 6 minutes left to go in the fourth, and Marty comes over and tells me to warm up. I'm going in, and then that was the game where we came back and almost tied it. We ended up scoring, going for two, got the onside, scored again, and then missed the 2-point conversion. But like, that's right then when the talk started about potentially making a switch at the quarterback spot.
Okay. Wow. That is an
That's a
eventful
lot. It's
first
a lot of
year.
information. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they bring you along, but you just never know. And everything can go every which way. And yeah, and it was a good year. I did get a chance to start against Tampa, and then against the Vikings, and then against the Steelers that year. Yeah. So I played against Green Bay. I played against Chicago. I came in at the end of the game against Chicago late in the game. Almost, that was the game I think we were 0-11, and we couldn't get a win. So I think Johnny Morton came out and told Jay Leno to kiss his you know what. But
I remember
when we
that too.
finally, yeah, when we finally beat the Vikings. But yeah, it was. I did get an opportunity to play. I got to come play the Steelers in my hometown on Christmas Eve. So yeah, it was a good experience overall. Everything works out for a reason. It is what it is, and I end up really loving Detroit, falling in love with it.
Well, look, I mean, what a homecoming story. Christmas Eve, back in your hometown, you're playing Pittsburgh, you're a starting quarterback for the other team. I mean,
Yeah,
that's kind of crazy.
yeah, they were a playoff team. We got waxed, but
Okay,
I
so it
do
wasn't
remember.
quite a Hallmark story, but
Yeah, no, but yeah. So I did it again. I threw 2 touchdowns. That was the first year for Heinz Field, so I threw 2 touchdowns in that stadium. So at least say I got touchdowns in that, and then one was the Dave Sloan. Actually, both were the Dave Sloan. Um, but I
great
ended up
tight end.
breaking my foot. Yeah, I ended up breaking my foot in the second to last play of the game. Uh, we were probably, I think we were down like 21, and there's only 20 seconds, and I'm like it's one of those things like, do we continue fighting? Because I was always taught you play to the final whistle, and or do you just kind of hand the ball off and kneel it and take it out? Well, they were calling passes, so I was scrambling and trying to make something happen, and ended up getting sacked and got bent on my foot and broke my foot. And I knew there was only going to be about time for one last play, and I did not. I remember I got up and like literally hobbled and just handed the ball off because I did not want Ty Detmer to come out freezing cold to come out for one snap just to hand the ball off. It's the worst feeling as a quarterback when you come in just to take a kneel or to hand the ball off, and it's freezing cold and you're losing. So I remember I stayed in, and Ty was like, "Thank you so much." And I was, but it was, yeah. I mean, again, the rookie season was it was a great learning experience. Got drafted. It was awesome. Um, didn't go the way it wanted to, but it ended up, being, a great experience for myself.
For sure. It really sounds like you had a variety of incredible experiences that first year.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can get good experiences, bad experience. For me, the draft was always a bad experience. It just always was. Even the following year, I think you and I spoke about this before off camera. It's just, hey, it is what it is, and the next year you think, all right, finally it's gonna be a good year, and then they, draft Joey,
Yeah. I mean,
but it is, yeah.
we talked about that off camera. The 2001 draft was your draft. Do you want to, tell, the listeners how the draft the following year, which you were not involved in, directly
Yeah,
impacted you?
well, so I sat down as soon as the season ended. I was rehabbing with my foot, and most guys at that time were kind of leaving because there was a lot of turnover on that team, and we were moving to Ellen Park. So a lot of guys that stayed on the team, stayed there, eventually. But most of the young guys on that team, like they didn't have a place. They were off to Florida or Arizona or their hometown in the off season. And I was like, yeah, they asked me what I was going to do. And I was like, well, I don't know, I guess to go home. And they're like, well, you need to stay here. Like you're going to be the quarterback of our future. You need to buy a house. Like you can't rent. You got to stay here. And so I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, all right. And so I started looking around, and I ended up buying like a townhome condo because, it was a rookie contract. And I was like, I tried to do everything smart the right way. And so I stayed there all off season. I would go in, 2, 3 days a week, watch film, meet one day a week with my quarterback coach to try to look at what I did wrong and where I could improve upon. And hey, I'm going to be the starting quarterback, so I got to handle this the right way. And then the draft talk starts happening, and all this speculation, and then they brought Joey Harrington in for a visit, and at the new facility down in Allen Park, because I remember throwing and seeing him up there, and I'm like, oh, this is weird. I'm like, and they brought me in, like, nah, this is a smoke screen. We're not drafting him. We're not doing that. We're going defense. And I was like, all right, okay. And then they asked me to go to a draft party, and I said, yeah, sure. I was like, just do me a favor, like, just are we drafting him? Like I'll still go, but just give me the heads up. Like we are definitely not doing it. Don't worry, it's not happening. And then I'm at the sports bar doing this appearance for the Lions on the team, and literally like right before the pick comes in, my phone rings. It was my quarterback coach, and he just said, "I don't know what just happened." And then right then it just says, "The Lions select Joey Harrington." I was like, "Oh my goodness!" I was like, and hey, like I thought
Wow.
my first year was bad. Seeing your name just get passed up that first day, spending it with your family. Well, now I'm at a sports bar, and I'm getting the Donovan McNabb treatment, the cheers or the boos right there. Some people are like, "Yeah, we got Joey," and some people were like, "Oh, I feel bad for you," and I'm like, it's like it's awkward. I don't know what to do. But the thing is I was a 5th-round draft pick on a 3-year contract, and I think Joey was, he's a first round on a 5-year contract. So, you could probably do the math. That's going to be a little bit different in salary. And the writing was on the wall. They tried to tell me, Marty was like, "Hey, I'm going to give you 6 games before we make a change." And I got 2 away games, and then we made the change. So I was like, "Oh, all right." It was I get it. We were opening Ford Field. It was the brand new stadium we were opening. We were playing the Packers. And hey, it is what it is. You live and learn. And so, I learned the business side really quick. I mean, you one moment you think you're the man, and a month later you're the odd man out. So it's just the way it is.
Yeah, that's an incredible turn of events, and especially again the way you had to probably present yourself because you were out in public that year versus the previous year where you get to be home with your family.
Yeah, it's tough. It's definitely it's tough. But I mean, you try to use it as fuel. You try to use it as fuel to when you're on the tired days and you don't want to work. I mean, look, some guys, it doesn't rattle. Some guys, it could rattle. But you look at like a guy like Amon St. Brown. He's very open about how he used that list to fuel his work ethic to become one of the top receivers in the league, and I respect that. Um, you have to have that chip. You have to have a little bit of a chip on your shoulder. You have to have some confidence, and I think for me, um, uh, I had that for a while, and then once I lost that is when things kind of started going away. I humbled myself, and I was trying to be a better teammate. I was trying to do things the right way, which I essentially started almost questioning my athletic ability. It didn't have that edge, and it kind of backfired on me. So it's a fine line. You want to stay confident. You don't want to be cocky. You need to have that confidence and that fuel and that desire to be great. But at the same time, you got to be a good teammate, and you don't want to be a jerk or come across as a selfish person. I mean, everyone is going to have their own selfish reasons a little bit here and there, but you want to be good.
Yeah, because even though you want that starting job, in the end, your job is to work as a team and have everybody get better. So ultimately, you guys can win games. And so that's where, like you said, you've got that balance. You've got to have that fuel, but you also want to do it the right way.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
So another interesting thing happened though is you went from playing in the Silverdome to Ford Field. Like you were the last year at the one stadium and the first year at the next. Uh, any interesting tidbits on that transition or what that was like going from one stadium to the other?
Uh, well, for the Silverdome, we were on a lease, and we essentially rented the Silverdome. Now, the locker room was kind of old school. It was almost like chain link fences. You couldn't really like throw your keys on the top shelf because it would just fall down through the chain link shelf. It was interesting. It was like
Wow.
really old school. Your practice field was up the hill outside on this little nice piece of grass. When the cold weather came, if they didn't verify it, if they didn't verify it with the Silverdome, we couldn't go inside. They had like a little bubble out there too that we practiced in, but we couldn't always be inside the Silverdome. And I remember the one time they were like, "Yeah, well, we're going in. We're going in the Silverdome." And we were in there practicing, and apparently we weren't supposed to be. And for some reason, whoever was in charge decided to start playing music as loud as they could to get us out, as to be a distraction. And it was Kid
Wow.
Rock, Ball with the Ball, as loud as you could possibly play it. And the coaches were like, "Hey, this is nothing like this is the same as crowd. Excuse me, this is the same as crowd noise." And so we stayed in, and we're on the field. We're going through indies. We're warming up, and all of a sudden, the turf starts bubbling up. And so the turf, the AstroTurf at the time, that thick rubber mat with
Oh
turf on
yeah.
top, it wasn't field turf. It was AstroTurf. So to get that up because the Silverdome used to hold like concerts and monster truck rallies. You don't keep the turf down when you have the monster truck rally. So you lift the turf up, and how do you do it? There's like these hoses that go under and put air underneath it, so it pushes the rubber up so it doesn't stick. And we're on the turf and it's like bubbling up. And so we were forced to leave, and we had to walk outside and go practice outside in the snow, I think. And that's the funny thing is like when we finally went to Dearborn Allen Park, we actually had an indoor field that we could use at all times and didn't have to get kicked off at any point. So that was a nice thing. So there's some insight. Maybe that was one of the reasons why we were, 0-11 the start of that year. We're not just fighting the other teams; we're fighting the damn stadium people who ran the lease.
Mike, that is one of the most bizarre stories I've heard about an NFL team trying to practice in their stadium, which obviously apparently was not owned but leased. But the fact that they were kicked out of it and not
Yeah,
allowed to practice.
I didn't understand it because I was like, why can't we practice in our stadium? And it was like, well, we leased this, and there was I don't know why we weren't allowed or weren't supposed to be on it that day, but for
Yeah.
some reason they did not want us on it, and it was like, well, we're gonna be on it for 2 hours. What's the big deal? And they got us out.
Wow. Well, you moved into Ford Field, a
Got it.
smaller facility, but downtown Detroit. I think it
Yep.
holds 65,000 versus about 80 some thousand. But obviously everything was brand new. Was that kind of weird walking into that?
Yeah, I mean, it was nice. It was obviously the facility was amazing, brand new. It's the same facility they have now, but they've made some upgrades, some improvements, some additions on. It's an incredible spot. The practice facility, like literally, you walk out of the locker room, it's right across the hallway. It's right there where the Silverdome. We're walking up the different ramps and stuff. Even the grass fields are right there. Everything is perfect. It's right on the spot. The only thing that was a little took a little adjusting to was and a lot of teams do this now too, is because they have a practice facility, then they have their home stadium.
Right.
But you had to pack your bag for home games. Like typically when we were at the Silverdome, like you would just leave and show up on game day and all your stuff is there. Um, uh, but at Ford Field, like we only went down there for games or for like maybe open practices with some fans. So you would have to pack your travel bag and obviously the equipment guys do a great job of setting everything up and setting your locker up and all this stuff. But I do remember like it was always like nice, like, oh, I forgot those shoes. Oh man, like, all right, I guess. So you just got to make sure when you pack everything.
All right, that
But
makes
no, it
sense. I
was
wouldn't have
brand
thought of that.
new. It was great. Uh, it was awesome. It was definitely a great place to play, and the upgrades they've done to the stadium, to the facility, to everything. It's first class all the way, and they've done it the right way.
Now, Mike. I mean, through this conversation, you've been very candid and shared some of your fun moments, endearing, and impactful moments, and those that haven't been the best. And you were in Detroit during some of those lean years, not during the 0-16 2009 season, but so some seasons that the Lions didn't win very much and had high draft picks under the Matt Millen regime. But again, when we've spoken, you've thought back and you still think back on Detroit and your time there quite fondly. Can you share one or two of your favorite memories from your time in Detroit, in addition to the ones you've already shared?
I've got so many good ones. I mean, I will say, when I became an unrestricted free agent and I went to Philly, um, it the Philly just came off their Super Bowl year, and so the egos were really high there. Though the guys were great, they were some good players, but the egos, the expectations when you went out was a lot different. Like it was like, yeah, you gotta do this. I want my car parked up front, this and that. It was like in Detroit, you could kind of fly under the radar. It's kind of funny. You could go out. At the time, the Red Wings were the hot team, and people were like, "Oh, what do you do?" I'm like, "Oh, you play for the Lions." And they're like, who cares? You don't play hockey. And that's the way it was. But the relationships, I think for some reason, the players, we were much closer. Um, just as far as hanging out off the field as well. But there's so many memories. In the building, out of the building, playing golf with guys outside the building in the areas. Just, even going to Nob Hill, trying snowboarding for the first time with some friends there. It was a great place to live. You've got golf courses, you've got lakes. Mariucci came in, and he was living on Pine Lake, and a buddy of mine had a boat on Pine Lake, and and I had learned to go wakeboarding a little bit, so I was, wakeboarding in the summertime, and it was kind of during the season, and I it was early in the season, so it was still light out at night, and so we got out of practice, and we were done, and I was like, oh, I'm not playing, I'm the backup, so I was like, yeah, I'll go wakeboarding, and I'm out in the lake wakeboarding, and sees me out there, and and like, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, what are you doing in his boat? Come on my boat. So then I ended up going on Mooch's boat instead. So Mooch was a really good players coach. He got it. He was always, understood the balance, being able to have fun and spend time with family and friends, but also being serious as well. But no, it's just the stories, the different guys from all different walks of life. You got guys from the city, you got guys from the country, you got guys all over the place. It's funny. You get some of these stories where you're shocked, and some people don't have as much life experience as others, and you got to help them through it.
Well, that's exactly it. I'm also a teacher, and I tell my students, if you don't know something, that's okay. It takes time to learn, and we all learn things at different speeds, at different paces, and like you said, life experiences. Some people haven't moved around, or if you go to high school in one state and then college in another state, that too is a whole learning experience for you.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think kids are getting a little bit more experience now, though, with when you look at college football, when you look at the transfer portal, when you look at kids bouncing around from college to college to college. Heck, they're like pro players at this point. So they're at least experienced in that aspect. They're not quite as green as we were.
For sure. Yeah, and the world's so much more connected as well.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, is there anything you would like fans to know more about you, or something that you might think that would surprise them to learn about you or about the Lions that you haven't already shared?
No, I look back, and obviously, like I said, I had some great experiences. I did some really good things. I did some things that, if I look back, if I could go back in time and change some things, I probably would. It's just that's the way life is. But all in all, I'm forever grateful that the Lions drafted me. I'm forever grateful that they gave me that opportunity. I always root for them. That's the team I root for. That's the team that drafted me. Um, Even though, like, things don't go the way they want to at times, and you know, you don't really want to hold it. Obviously, that was your first opportunity, whether that was the first opportunity given to me and also first opportunity taken away from me, but you still, you appreciate it. And I look back, and hey, maybe I could have done a better job. Maybe if I would have been a little bit more aware, maybe if I would have worked harder, so there's always different ifs. And so I just look back, I'm just grateful for all the life experience that I have, and that the Lions have allowed me to be a part of their organization. And I'm just happy, when they finally do win. I always say they, because I know a lot of fans will say, we, and I always used to laugh because, like, even with some of my buddies, they refer to the Steelers, we this, we that. I'm like, well, you don't play. But even now, I always typically refer to the Lions or they, because, I was a part of that organization, but, it's been through a lot of ups and downs. And yeah, even though a lot of us players have went through some rough patches, we couldn't get it done. We couldn't get it done, and now the guys that are there now are getting it done. Dan Campbell has done a great job. You look at those players; they are finding a way to get it done, and they deserve the credit. It is they. We can root for them. I will root for them as much as anyone else. But like, hey, man, you guys deserve all the credit. You guys have done a phenomenal job, and we're just happy that we were a part of that organization.
Well, and you say the they versus the we, but didn't I see you on the field last year before one of the games?
Well, the playoff game, they brought us back, and yeah, they reached out and was like, "Hey, would you be willing to do some throwing on the field before the game, like a fan fest thing?" And I was like, and the way it was sent to me, this is the miscommunication in text, fan fest. Sure, I thought like I'd maybe like throw the ball to some fans underhand in the stands or something, and it wasn't it wasn't relayed to me that I was going to be on the field throwing at targets, and so I blew my shoulder out in Rutgers my junior year, had surgery. The doctor went in and tightened it up so tight that I continued playing, and every time I threw, there was no wiggle room. So the head of my humerus was grinding the cartilage up in my shoulder socket, and so it was 2010. I had it cleaned up, and they were like, "Yeah, you shouldn't play football because if you continue throwing and playing football, throwing football every day, you're not going to be able to, you know, throw with kids if you have kids later in life or this and that." And I was like, all right. And then I got a call to go play, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to go play. So I went and played like 4 more years, and so my shoulder now, I train quarterbacks, and I'm very very aware of the mechanics, and I tell kids don't ever reach the ball out with your throwing arm and this and that, but it's hard for me to get my right shoulder up over my head. I just can't, and I can't really throw the ball very far, but um, just because of that, I need a shoulder replacement now. So when I went out there and they said, "Yeah, you ready? You warmed up?" And I was like, "What do you mean I warmed up? I'm just chucking an underhand into the stands." And they're like, "No." The girl was like, "No, you're going to go out in the field and throw to this thing." I'm like, "What targets?" She's like, like the Pro Bowl Skills Challenge." I'm like, "It better not be the Pro Bowl Skills." And luckily, there was only 1-5, 110, and then there was like a garbage can like 20 yards away, which was like kind of like the Dr. Pepper Challenge. And I was like, I don't know if I can get it that far. And they're like, "Nah, don't worry, the Lions, he's pretty good at it. The Lion is really good at this." And it was
He
like,
is.
you have 30 seconds to get this done, for something. And I was like, I literally was like, oh my goodness. I was a little panicking, and when I went out there, and then the lights are on, Anthony, the MC was like, "Yeah, it's gonna get real bright." I'm like, "What do you mean? It's already pretty bright here." And then the lights come on. I was like, "Oh man!" I tried to play it as cool as I could, but I'm telling you, I was sweating. I was nervous, uh, and I had to focus on every little mechanics with my feet and my shoulder to make that one throw, to try to even get it to the distance. And I remember I could literally we missed the garbage can twice, and I could hear the fans starting to moan and grumble, and I'm like, "Oh my goodness, no, please, please, no!" And finally, I think he said like 9 seconds, and I threw it, and I went to go grab for one more because the clock was at 3 seconds by this point, and by the time I looked up, like the ball I just thrown went in, and it was. I think I just kind of put my hand up, like it was pure relief. It was not calm and cool. It was like, yes, yes. I was like, oh, it was like a relief. And Schlesinger was over on the sideline. They were laughing, a couple of my teammates. And yeah, it was great though. I mean, it was great to be back out there. My family, it was a playoff game, so they really could only bring the players back. But I got a video of it. My sisters, my nieces, my nephews, they all saw it. They saw the full video, so they said they started to feel the anxiety as we were missing the garbage can as the clock was running down. But it was good. It was awesome. I'm forever grateful that they brought me back and made me a part of that. The only thing that would have been better is if we won that playoff game. Unfortunately, we didn't. But again, I'm forever grateful for everything the Lions do. I love coming back to Detroit. trying to do some appearances here and there. I'll come back and do the basketball games with Rob Rubik and a lot of the former Lions with Herman Moore and Corey Schlesinger, and it's always great to come back and see those guys and meet with fans. And one thing I know as a player when I played, I was the backup, and I was always like, I'm a backup, and you would go to Tuesdays is your off day, and you could go do appearances, and you go to local hospitals, and I remember at that time, I was like, no one wants to see me. I'm the backup. No one like, oh, no one's gonna make a big deal. Like, why? Like, I don't. And honestly, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you are. You could be a practice squad guy. You could be retired for 50 years. You show up and you see some of the kids in the hospitals. You give your time to some of the fans. It means the world to them. And any rookie that comes into Detroit, whether they're the starter or whether they're barely making the team and they're a practice squad guy, I would encourage them to make sure that they make themselves available to the Detroit Lions appearance department. Go out, go see the hospitals, go see the kids, give your time to them. There's a lot less fortunate people in our lives, and we're lucky enough to play football, and they don't really care if you're the starter or if you're like the fifth string guy. They just want to be, they're just happy that you show up and see them.
Yeah, no, that resonates in so many different areas, and appreciate that, you were so candid throughout this. You shared so much, personal experiences, great moments, and even the not so great moments. And
yeah.
Again, that fondness for the Lions, I think any Lions fan listening to this, they understand that dedication and love for this franchise because, you have to if you're still a Lions fan and you've been one for more than 5 years. So,
yeah, you appreciate it. You appreciate all the fans that continuously show up. Look, I know it's rough. I know, you went through some losing years, but the players always appreciate your support. And even though sometimes at times they might snap off and say something, so young guys, if they're young, they're young. It just takes time. They'll mature, and all the players were always forever grateful. And I'm just forever grateful that the Lions even gave me that opportunity.
Awesome, Mike. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today, and it was so much fun talking with you.
Yeah, anytime. I appreciate it.
Once again, folks, that was former Detroit Lions quarterback Mike McMahon. He's been kind enough to join us multiple times on our show and share many of his personal experiences with us. Thank you, folks, also for tuning in. Please tell your friends and family about the show. You can find us on social media sites like Instagram and Twitter. You can find us on major streaming platforms, including YouTube. Would love to hear your thoughts and reviews. Check out more episodes and content at notthesameoldlions.com. And until next time, stay gritty, my friends.